Well, good afternoon. I'm trying something a little different today. I wanted to talk about chickens and cognition and animals and cognition. So I believe that all animals have the ability to learn. They have limited ability. It's not the same ability as we have. But I wanted to show you an example of my chickens. My chickens have learned that when I come out of the house with this pail, that they get food. So we're going to try to call them, and they listen. They hear me. So I'll say, "Hooners, hooners," and they'll start running. And I don't know if you can see them. Hooners, 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 hooners. Hello, hooners. So these are my chickens. I don't know if you could see them. Chickens have limited ability to learn. And so this afternoon we are going to do a little bit of an experiment. So I'm going to go feed my chickens, and then we're going to talk about a couple of cognitive concepts. Kom moedertjies. Sometimes we give them treats, and they love blueberries, but I don't have my blueberries with me this afternoon, but I'm just going to give them the pail of food that they can usually get, and then they kind of scrounge around and they give it. There we go. So I know chickens can learn because our chickens have learned how to actually get out of our yard. But we're not going to talk about that today. We had a MacGyver chicken, and they're following me because they think I'm kind of cool. But this afternoon, I thought I would sit out here and just talk a little bit about a couple of things. One of the things I wanted to talk about was hyperfocus. And if you will see my chickens, they are hyper-focused on me right now because I usually give them food. But anyway, hyperfocus is the ability or a very intense form of mental concentration on a topic or a task. The reason I picked hyperfocus earlier this week is one of our chickens is actually brooding right now. And when we take her off of the nest, I couldn't catch that this afternoon, but when we take her off the nest, because she's not going to be able to breed out the eggs since we don't have a roost. When she comes out of the nest, she'll stand there for a second, and then the only thing she knows to do is to run and go get water. And so I actually wanted to take a video of that, but I did not think it would work this afternoon, so I decided to go with this. But for fun, I thought I would actually talk about attention this afternoon. So let's talk about attention. See, I got my cheat sheet. There are 4 types of attention. The first is what we would usually know or think about as concentration. So we all have the ability to concentrate on a task. Animals do too. They can concentrate to a limited extent on certain tasks. Well, they certainly can learn. Like I said, our chicken has learned to fly over the fence. So sustained concentration or concentration is one thing. So attention is divided into 4 different types of attention. We have sustained attention, we have selective attention, we have alternating or shifting attention, and we're going to come back to that one. That one's actually pretty important. And then divided attention. So let's talk about the first one, concentration. Concentration is what we think about when we're actually just trying to do something. We're paying bills, we're concentrating on a task. Well, it is very, very difficult to learn something new if you cannot pay attention to a task. So paying attention or concentration is the first stepping stone of being able to use our memory. If we do not pay attention to a task, it's very hard to remember things. So when you have people with their sustained attention or concentration can help your memory. So the next one is filter out. So a good example of selective attention would be we're focusing on something, but there's music in the background and somebody else is having a conversation, or we're swatting the flies to try and get them out of our face. Attention to one thing, but there are other things going on in the surroundings. So that is what we call selective. Okay. Here's the important one that I actually wanted to talk about. So people can focus on one thing at a time, really, truly. If you're truly concentrating, you can only focus on one thing at a time. The reason why driving and texting is so dangerous is because we're actually shifting our attention between things. So that's shifting attention. We're going to come back to attention to things that have let's pick two things that you can do at the same time. You're cooking a meal, a very familiar meal, and the music is not requiring an awful lot of our concentration. For them, they had to concentrate. Divided attention is only between things that are equally in our brain. Our brain cannot do two things hyper-focused or with very high attention for a significant period of time. Even though driving is a very automatic activity for us, we are still using a lot of our cognitive ability to be able to drive. We have a lot of factors going in. We're paying attention to the road, we're anticipating the drivers, we're looking ahead for hazards coming down the road. There's a lot going on while we're driving. So we're actually concentrating, even though we're doing it automatically, we're actually concentrating a lot when we're driving a vehicle. So when we're shifting our attention between two things, we actually have to take our attention entirely off of the one thing, and that takes, a nanosecond, but it's long enough, and then put it on something else. So when we then start to text, we're actually having to shift our attention from driving onto the phone or the device that we're using to type it in or voice command or whatever, and our attention isn't all on the road anymore. Our attention is entirely focused on the phone because our brain does not have the ability to have that level of concentration between those two tasks. The cognitive demands are too high for those two tasks to be done at the same time. Driving, that's when an accident can happen. So people who have trouble with their thinking, normal people cannot shift their attention in that manner in order to be able to go from paying attention to driving. And people who already have difficulty with their thinking processes, who are not responding as quickly anymore to their reflexes or not anticipating the consequences of what's going down. At the same time, but also to consider is we maybe don't want people talking in the car, having lots of conversations or arguments, or even listening to the radio. There's a measure of truth to You know, Granny cannot walk and chew gum at the same time. You know, some people really cannot walk, even though it's automatic, and do something else at the same time. So this was just a quick little definition of how can I use my chickens as a attention, which is being able to divide our attention between two things that are of equal or less cognitive demands, and then we have the ability to alternate our attention or between two things. So I hope this little me when I come out with their chicken pail. But anyway, I hope you guys have a wonderful afternoon. This one was not actually part of my executive functioning series, but I wanted to get outside and just kind of be outside in the sun, and I think we're getting some rain this afternoon. But if you have any questions regarding cognition, please drop them into the comments below, and I'd be happy to talk about and come up with examples of things for you in order to be able to teach. So I hope you have a blessed afternoon, and I will talk to you again next week. Thank you. Bye.